The other thing that struck me when I was looking through various internet search engines before I did this interview was quite how much cruel, distressing, horribly tasteless commentary there is out there about you, about Madeleine, people giving their opinions about what they think happened, though even though they don't know you, they were nowhere near, they can't possibly know. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think the whole social media, I mean, it's got huge pros but huge cons. And I mean, on the downside and all that's been written, I guess we protect ourselves really. We don't go there, to be honest. We are aware of things that get said because people alert us to it. I guess our worry is for our children, really.
Of course, because they're now 12, they're at an age where social media becomes increasingly important.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to dwell on, you know, the negative aspects too long, but I think in this era of fake news, it is extremely topical, and I think people just need to think twice before what they write and the effects it has on it. And certainly, I know ourselves with our own experience, both in the mainstream media and also on the internet, I'm not going to believe that until I see evidence of it convincing. And you know what? I'm sure there's a very small minority of people who spend their time doing it, but it's totally inhibited what we do. Personally, we don't use social media, although we have used it in Madeleine's campaign. But for our twins who are growing up in an era where mobile technology is used all the time, we don't want them not to be able to use it the same way that their peers do.
So how do you protect them?
I think the most important thing, and we had some excellent advice early on with Kate, and is that we've been as open with them as we can. We've told them about things, excuse me, and also, you know, that people are writing things that are simply just untrue, and they need to be aware of that. They're not really at the age where they are, you know, on the internet and other sites, but they're coming to, yeah, they're coming to that stage, and they're in closed groups with their friends, etc., and that's important.
I think we've tried to educate them a little bit as well, because obviously it's not just us that has fallen victim to
of course not.
The downside of social media. And
but does it shock you? Because it shocked me, certainly a little, the things that people say.
I think it has been shocking, the whole kind of that aspect of human nature that I hadn't really encountered before. And because I think it's so far from how you would behave or people that you know would behave, it's been striking and quite hard really to get your head around, because why would somebody write that, you know? Why would somebody add to someone's upset? Why would someone in a position of ignorance do something like that? But
I think we're seeing the worst and the best of human nature in experience, and our personal experience rather than on the internet has been overwhelmingly seeing the better side of human nature. And I think we need to remember that, actually. We've had fantastic support over the last 10 years, and because there's a lot of media attention now around the 10th anniversary, we're starting to see that again.
I think it's true. I think because things like social media or Amaral or whatever, because it's so awful and upsetting, it does kind of sometimes stand out more, so it becomes more of a talking point really, whereas actually the main thing that we've experienced is the goodness of people and the support that we've had over 10 years, which hasn't wavered in all that time, you know. And that,
how different is your life now to the life that, you know, when you have a child, you consciously or subconsciously imagine your future and the future of that child. I mean, how different is your life now to what you must have imagined all those years ago?
Oh, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because it's such a long time. But
yeah, I think before Madeleine was taken, we felt we'd managed to achieve a little perfect nuclear family of 5. And we had that for a short period, and I suppose it's just almost the same way as if your child becomes ill or seriously ill or has died, and like many other families have suffered, then your vision is altered and you have to adapt. And I think that's a theme that, speaking to other people who have gone through terribly traumatic processes with children and other loved ones, that is something that gradually happens, and you adapt and you have a new normality. And unfortunately for us, our new normality at the minute is a family of 4. But we have adapted, and that's important. And as we've said about the investigation, the last 5 years in particular, it's allowed us to really properly devote time to looking after the twins and ourselves, and of course carrying on with our work. At some point you've got to realise that, you know, time is not frozen, and I think both of us realised that we've owed it to the twins to make sure that their life is as fulfilling as they deserve, and we've certainly tried our best to achieve that.
And certainly on the face of it, you appear to have stayed so strong as a family unit. I just wonder how you've managed to do that, how you've managed to, you know, it's so easy to blame each other when a cataclysm befalls a family. That's such an easy trap to fall into.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been any blame, fortunately. I think what people do say is you don't realise how strong you are until you have no option, and I think that's very true. Obviously, massive events like this cause a lot of reaction, a lot of trauma and upset, but ultimately you have to keep going, and especially when you've got other children involved. And you know, some of that is subconscious. I think your mind and body just take over to a certain extent, but if you can't change something immediately, you have to go with it and do the best that you can. And I think that's all we've tried to do. And as Jerry said, I mean, one of our goals, obviously ultimately finding Madeleine, was to ensure that Sean and Emily have a very normal, happy and fulfilling life. And we'll do everything that we can to ensure that.
And life for you has changed in different ways, Kate. I mean, you were a GP, you stopped working, you haven't gone back to full-time work. I mean, I assume the idea of someone else looking after your children seemed, well, unthinkable after what happened. You just needed to be with the children and be there.
Well, certainly initially, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the kids weren't even in school, so I wanted to be there. I didn't want to let them out my sight. There was obviously a lot going on, a lot of campaign work, there was a lot of emotion. I am actually back at work now. I'm doing something different to what I was doing, but...
What are you doing now?
So I'm back into medicine, but a different area to not general practice. So that obviously takes up some time. And again, that was a big step as well to re-establishing as normal a life as possible. So, I mean, life's busy. I think in some ways, I don't know if it's our personality or whether it's a coping strategy, but sometimes it's almost a little bit too frenetic, but it keeps us going. You know, I think we don't dwell too much on things unnecessarily, so I think there's probably a self-protective thing there as well, but we do have a very full life and as normal as we can make it.
And how much do you make Madeleine a part of it? And do you talk about Madeleine? Is she a name that crops up every day?
Yeah, I mean, she's always still part of our life. There's photographs all around the house. Obviously at this time of year, then we can't even have conversations that doesn't involve it. The kids know that we're doing our interview today. They know the anniversary's coming up. So she is still part of it, but obviously...
Yeah, I mean, I think every kind of event that we do, whether it be a birthday or a family occasion or even an achievement or something, I mean, that's kind of when you really feel her absence. It's slightly different to how it was in the early days when everything we were doing was to find Madeleine, whereas now we are having to get on and live a life as well, but it's not that any day she's not there, if you know what I mean.
And last time we talked, you told me how you were still buying birthday presents and Christmas presents for Madeleine. Are you, with 10 years now, are you still doing that?
I still do that, yeah. And that.
So you go around the shops and you think Madeleine would be this age now, what would she want? And
that's it. So, I mean, I obviously have to think about what age she is and something that you know, whenever we find her, will still be appropriate. So there's a lot of thought goes into it, but I couldn't not, you know, she's still our daughter. She'll always be our daughter.
It's because Kate does all the present buying anyway.
I always do the present buying,
Present buying.
you know, and yeah, there'll be another one coming up in, you know, next few weeks, so.